Good morning from New York City, and welcome to the fifth storytelling from the Hans Christian Andersen Storytelling Center, gone virtual. We hope we'll be back in Central Park in August. We'll keep you posted. This morning, we're really celebrating the 4th of July, Independence Day. And up until I was around 5 years old, I thought it was a family holiday because it was my brother's birthday, who was and is still 7 years older than me. And we would go to Coney Island in the evening, and there were fireworks, and I was amazed at how many people came to celebrate my brother's birthday. Thousands of people. What I have learned, however, is that it's a bigger family holiday. And today we're celebrating with three remarkable, brilliant, wonderful storytellers who have devoted themselves not only to the art of storytelling and community, but to what I think is the real source of celebration for an Independence Day, which is the diversity of this amazing land that is involved in an experiment like none other of democracy. And in order to properly celebrate this land, we have one of the finest Native American storytellers, Joseph Bruchac, who's going to start today. And Joseph is not only a storyteller, which is a great deal in the world, but is a poet, an advocate for Native American people, and generously for the heart of all beings, alive, plant, animal, and spirit. So if you want to look up Joseph, get ready for an astonishing profusion of books that are amazing gifts to all of us, of Native American stories and more. Joseph, welcome and thank you for making this a truly proper celebration.
Kwai, Niton Bak. Hello, my friends. Louisa Soza, Alanokidahozid. My name is Joseph, or the Peaceful One. Indai Salatog Yalanobizon Tadaralon de Garden, Alnobania. My friends, my name is Joseph. My name is Joseph, or the Peaceful One. I'm of the area called Saratoga, the Adirondack Mountain region. Alnobania means a human being is what I am, Takiak, as are all of you. All of us are part of the circle, like the shape of this drum. And as we come together today, it's important to remember this land is a land that is shared by all people, but first was a land of indigenous people. And so I want to acknowledge in this land where I am, in this land of New England and New York, the indigenous people, the people of Algonquin nations, my own Abenaki people, the Munsee people, the people of the Hudson River, and to the west of us, I acknowledge, my friends, the people of the Longhouse, the Haudenosaunee, in particular, the Ganyenkigaha, the people of the Mohawk Nation, the people of the Stone. It was the tradition in the old days, as we traveled by our old superhighways, the rivers, that we would, as we approached a village or a community that was not our own, sing a song to announce that we were here. We're asking permission, requesting that we might land and join them. And the song played on the drum and sung from the canoe would then be answered from the shore with a welcoming song. So I'm going to begin in that way today with this drum, which is as round as the shape of this earth, as round as the shape of the circle that we all come together and join. Yo de yo da, Gaiawani hey yokyo hey, Gaiawani hey yokyo hey, Gaiawani hey yokyo hey, Gaiawani hey yokyo hey, yo de yo da, yo de yo da, Kaio ajine yo. wajine, kayo wajine. And I began with an Abenaki song, and then I transitioned into the Seneca canoe song, one of the Haudenosaunee songs that my dear friend Pete Seeger used to sing every year at the Great Hudson River Revival, a song that he learned from another friend of mine, Donna Dolans, Ray Fadden, a Mohawk elder and teacher. And that idea of bringing us together with story and with song is one of the oldest traditions. You know, we human beings were meant to listen. After all, we were given 2 ears and only 1 mouth, so we must listen twice as much as we talk. And when we hear our stories always serve at least 2 purposes. First of all, they're entertaining. That means that people will listen to them and remember them. But also, within those stories, there are lessons that can be drawn out and made use of. Even if we don't understand what the lesson is when it's being told to us, we may remember the story and the lesson will become clearer to us later. In fact, among our people, among our many different native nations, more than 500 different recognized nations today among our Native American tribal people, we all seem to have the same idea that children are meant to be respected, that when a child makes a mistake, instead of punishing them, the best thing to do is to speak kindly and gently to them and tell them a lesson story, for a lesson story may show the right way to proceed. And so I'm going to share with you one of those stories today. And I should say that in our traditions, many of our stories are only told in the wintertime. And that is because at that time when the days are short and the nights are long, we need these stories. But also the power of the story is such that certain stories, like the stories of creation, if they're told at the wrong time, it may cause problems in the natural world. In fact, we say that the birds may listen to the stories and forget to feed their young. And also that snakes love to hear stories. So if you tell the wrong story at the wrong time of year, snakes may come into your house, and you may not want that unless you really like snakes. So this story is one that we refer to as one of our lesson stories, a teaching story. And the main character in it, who is seen only briefly, is Gluskomba or Gluskabe. Long ago, it is said Gluskomba was the first to walk around in the shape of a human being, was given great power by Kikuchi-Yngojo, the great mystery, and told to use it to help the people. And when he had finished doing all the things he felt he needed to do, he climbed into his canoe and sailed out into the big water and disappeared from sight. But it was said that he was there on an island far out in that ocean. And if anyone could reach that island and ask, they would be granted one wish. That is what we are still told to this day, that Gluskomba is there on that island somewhere. So this story, which comes from a while ago, is a story about just that. In fact, a time ago, there were 4 men. These men were like brothers. They did many things together. And they had seen that when they worked together, they could accomplish great things. In fact, this is always true. People who cooperate can do much more than anyone just on their own. And so these 4 men came up with an idea. Their idea was this: the 4 of them would join together and together journey to that island of Gluskomba. And there, because each of them had wishes, they would ask Gluskomba to grant their wishes. Now, each of these men had particular talents. The first was a great canoe builder. It was said that his canoes were the swiftest and the strongest that anyone had ever seen. And this man, he had one wish. His wish was this. He wished to be taller than anyone else. He was not a short man. In fact, he was pretty tall already, but that was not good enough for him. He would put grass into his moccasins so they would be lifted up higher, and he would stand up very straight, and he would wear a headdress, asulquan, as we call it, with a tall heron feather on top of it to look even bigger than he was. So his wish was to be taller than any man. Now, the second man was also a man who had great talent. His talent was this. He was a great maker of songs. He could sing or play upon his flute songs that were so beautiful, it was said even the birds would copy his songs, that the wind would stop blowing to listen to him. And he had a wish too. His wish was that he would never grow old and die, as people do. He was very afraid of growing old and dying. Now, the third man, he too had a special talent. He was good at carving things. He could carve wood or ivory or stone or bone. And when he carved something, if he carved, for example, a turtle out of wood and put that wooden turtle on the ground, that wooden turtle would walk away. He was a great carver indeed. And his wish was to own many things. In fact, to own more than anyone else. Now, the fourth man, he also had a talent. His talent was seeing things. He could see ideas. He could see when others could not see. He could actually see well in the darkness or in the fog. And he too had a wish, but he did not tell anyone what that wish was. And so those four men got together in one of those beautiful canoes made by the first man, and they began to paddle out into the water toward that island of Gluskomba. And as they paddled along, for a time, all went well. And then, in front of them, bubbles began to appear on the surface of the water. And then, suddenly, out of the water leaped a great whale and landed on its side in front of them, very close to that canoe. A second whale leaped up and right over the top of the canoe and landed on the other side. And these men were worried. They could see those whales meant them no harm, but if a whale lands on your canoe, you will not have a good day. That is when the man who was a carver got the idea to do what he did. He reached into his pouch, took out a piece of wood, and quickly carved it into the shape of a little whale and dropped it in the water. That little whale began to swim, and the other whales, seeing it, swam after it, and they disappeared from sight in the depths of the ocean. And they continued along their way. Now, as they continued along, the wind began to blow so hard. That wind blew so hard that it lifted up great waves, and the boat was rocking back and forth. It seemed it would tip over, but that was when the man who knew songs took out his flute and he began to play. His song was so sweet, the wind stopped, the waves stopped, so they could hear his song. They continued along their way. But now another thing happened. Fog rolled in, fog so thick that you could barely see your fingers in front of your face if you held your hand out. They could not see where they were going except for that one man who could see well. He climbed into the front of the canoe. He said, "Brothers, I will guide us. Do as I say." And he guided them along, telling them which way to go. And then there was a sound of sand beneath the prow of that canoe. And they had come up on top of, they were on shore, on an island. They climbed out and looked. There was a hill in the middle of that island, and the fog was swirling around that hill and going out into the ocean. And they climbed that hill and saw that it was not fog at all, because there was a lodge. And from that lodge, smoke was coming out of the smoke hole and swirling around and turning into that fog. They came to the door of the lodge, and they scratched on the bark, which is the old way that we would knock. They scratched on that bark, and a voice from inside said, "Come in." They bowed their heads down and crawled through the door of that lodge, and when they got inside, they were astounded at what they saw. It had looked like a big lodge before, but now they could see it was so huge that it's as big as the sky. And there, smoking a pipe, its smoke rising up and going through the smoke hole, was a huge man. They knew who it had to be. It was Glus-Gomba. "Kwai kwai, ni dombak," he said. "Hello, my friends." And they replied, "Kwai kwai, Glus-Gomba." He said, "Pakuno guizian ni dombak." "You appear new to me," which is our old greeting, even for someone we know. And they said, "Oh, ulioni Glus-Gomba. So have you come here because you have wishes?" And they said, "Uh-huh." Indeed, it was so. And so one by one, they came up to him and told him what they wished. The first man, the canoe maker, told his wish. He said, "Glus-Gomba, I want to be taller than anyone else, taller than any man." Glus-Gomba nodded. "My friend, here, take this pouch. Within it is what you wish, but do not open it until you're in your own lodge." Well, that man took that pouch and smiled as he left that lodge. The second man came up. "Glus-Gomba, my wish is to never grow old and die the way people do." Glus-Gomba said. And he gave him a pouch too and said, "Do not open this until you're in your own lodge." The third man came up. He said, "Glus-Gomba, what I want is to have many, many, many things, more than anyone else has ever had. I want so many things." Glus-Gomba looked at him for a bit, perhaps thinking he was in the wrong century, but he said, "Oh, my friend, here." And he gave him a pouch and the same instruction: do not open it until you're in your own lodge. Well, then the fourth man came up. He said, "Glus-Gomba, before I tell you my wish, may I say to you, Olioni, Kikuchi-Yngojo, great, great thanks for all the good that you have done for our people." Glus-Gomba said, "Dakagwe, it is nothing. What is your wish?" And the man said, "Glus-Gomba, I'll whisper my wish to you." He came forward and whispered in Glus-Gomba's ear, and Glus-Gomba listened and smiled and nodded. And he said, "Nidolba, my friend, here is this pouch. You will not open it until you are in your own lodge. You will gain your wish." "Olioni, Kikuchi-Yngojo, great thanks," he said. He too left the lodge, and the four of them went back down the hill, climbed into their canoe, and began to paddle. It seemed they'd taken only 4 strokes when suddenly they were there, back on the shore of their own land, and they looked back and they could see no sign of that island, only a small wisp of fog disappearing over the water. Now, the man who wanted to be taller than all others, who was the owner of the canoe, he said to his friend who wanted many things, "My brother, I will be so tall, I will no longer need any canoe. I can see anywhere I want to see. So this canoe is yours." He climbed out. And the man who wanted many things said, "Oh, this is good. I have a canoe. And why are you people in my canoe? You can get out too." So the other two got out as well. And the man with his new canoe began to paddle along. Now that one who wanted to be taller than all others, he began to walk back towards his lodge. He walked on the trail that was high above the water, and he stopped and he thought, "I wonder what is in this pouch. Surely it will not hurt for me to take a look." And he opened it up and looked inside. As soon as he did, that man disappeared. Where he had been, there was now a great pine tree, taller than any man, its top waving like a feather in the wind. Now, the second man, who was afraid of growing old and dying, he walked along and began to worry as he walked. He thought, "Oh, what if I trip and hit my head and fall and kill myself before I get to my lodge? What if there was a mountain lion behind that tree and it leaped out and ate me? It is too dangerous. I must open this pouch now." And he opened it up, and it disappeared. And where he had been, there was now a great rock that would never grow old and die as people do. Now that man who was in his new canoe was paddling along, thinking of all the things he would soon own. But then he looked at that pouch and thought, "This pouch is very small. How could it hold everything I want? Perhaps Glusgoba made a mistake. I had better look." And he opened it up. As soon as he opened it, things began to pour out. Articles of clothing, all kinds of things you could imagine, baskets, tools, so many things, jewelry, so much kept pouring out more and more. He tried to close that pouch. It would not close. So much stuff came out that it filled his canoe. It covered him, tangled him in that man and that canoe, and all his possessions sank to the bottom of that water. Now the fourth man, who had whispered his wish, went straight to his lodge. He went inside. He spoke words of thanks again to Glusgoba and to Kikuchi-Yngojo, the great mystery, and then he opened that pouch. There was nothing inside it. But as he opened it, to his mind came ideas, things he could do to help the people, things he could do that would benefit others, which is what he had wished to have all along. And so it was that each of those men gained their wishes. And I leave it to you to decide whose wish was the best of all. And that is how that story goes.
Wow, what a fantastic and perfect story. May we all know where to go to ask for wishes to be fulfilled. Beautiful. Wow. Thank you so much. When we all finish the stories, we're going to come back together and we'll be together with all of our storytellers. And please, if you're listening, ask any questions you want, and we'll have a chance to hear from Joseph again. I want to introduce the next storytellers. I'm so honored and happy that they were able to be here today with us. Ethnotech is an Asian storytelling theater company who does the most remarkable work. And I spelled their names wrong, so I'm going to spend a second so that you know how their names are spelled. It's Nancy Wang and Robert Kikuchi-Yngojo. And if I am saying this incorrectly, Robert is going to get on and correct me. They have been working for 40 years, bringing great stories to families and remarkable storytelling theatrical pieces for adults. Nancy's heritage is Chinese and Robert's heritage is Philippine. And what could be better than to honor some of the great peoples who have come to this country and make it a worthwhile place. And here are beautiful, accomplished friends and great storytellers, Robert and Nancy of Ethnotech. And they are going to tell an Andersen story and other stories. But our theme for this whole series has been Andersen inspired. And they're going to tell one of the most iconic and probably one of the most important and relevant Andersen stories of the Emperor's New Clothes. And what will be interesting later is talking with Joseph and seeing how these stories are related to this remarkable Abenaki story that he told. So welcome, and so glad that you're here, Robert and Nancy.
All right. Thank you, Laura. And thank you, Joseph, for your storytelling. And thank Hans Christian Andersen, of storytellers that have been passing on the wisdom and the wit of many generations. And we think of storytellers as those that hold time in the palm of their hands and on the air of their voice. And to honor also the time-held traditions, we want to honor, do a land-based honoring of the First Nations people where we are right now in Washington State, the Salish peoples, the Lummi Nation, where we're here in San Juan County in Washington State. So we honor them and thank them for allowing us to be guests on their ancient soil. So the first story we're going to share.
Oh, and it is Kikuchi-Yngojo.
Oh,
and he
name.
is also Japanese.
Japanese Filipino.
Yeah.
It's a mix.
And you call it flip
nip. That's an in joke. All right. So we have chosen a story that's really about truth seeking and illusion, because part of the wisdom of hearing stories is to be able to discern truth from falsehood. A very good topic for these days.
Yes, indeed. The 4th of July is about,
Independence.
Independence.
From tyranny.
But
you have to recognize tyranny.
Instead of being duped. Yes.
So,
all right.
Let's launch our story called The Emperor's New Clothes.
You can start it by,
Hans Christian
Andersen, as reinterpreted by Ethnotech. Standing before a large mirror, he preened his hair and wiggled his plump jowls as it resettled into the silk-embroidered nest of his collar. A glance, then a tilt of his eyebrow, and then an abrupt scowl.
No, this will not do. This is not befitting of an emperor. Now, I've tried on 3 outfits, dozens of outfits, and none of these will do. Don't you have anything else, tailor?
Well, you've tried on everything in your wardrobe, created specifically with your approval, stammered the imperial tailor.
Well then, if that's all you can offer, I have no further need of your services, do I? You're dismissed. In fact, off with his head. Take him away.
The imperial ministers shivered in fear as they obeyed the emperor. Royal housemaids, chefs, and guards stiffened in the thought of His Majesty's finger flicking in their direction, signaling their dismissal and, even worse, their execution.
Now, what am I going to do? Who will be my tailor? The imperial parade is slated next week. What am I going to wear?
No need to worry, Your Highness. There is rumor that a traveling master tailor has been seen in the fabric district of the marketplace. Rumor has it that he is the finest in all the land and is actually looking for employment. Shall I send for him?
The emperor merely flashed a scornful brow at the minister and thundered, "What are you waiting for, you fool?"
Now, unbeknownst to His Majesty, his ministers, and even the commoners and merchants at the marketplace, this so-called master tailor was not at all a tailor. Oh, no, but he was indeed a master of swindling.
And as usual, this swindler, upon entering this new kingdom, began his job to listen carefully to the local gossip of the commoners.
And he had learned immediately that the emperor was looking for a new tailor, and thus his new title, Master Tailor, though we prefer pretender of a tailor. But for all purposes of this story, he is to be known as the tailor.
And now, not only has the tailor learned that their emperor is a tyrant who rules with both fear and force, but he also learned that no one ever dares to oppose him, his opinions,
His judgments.
and his thoughtless comments.
This emperor, throughout the years, has created an entire kingdom, one that collectively behaves as if under the spell of obedience, complacency, and complicity.
Oh, the citizens regale him with false compliments and shallow adoration. Some are well aware of their pretense, while other citizens are spellbound. Their minds see this foolish emperor as some sort of hero.
Yes, they actually have embraced him as some sort of messianic father figure, a fine leader that can do no wrong.
Nor tell any lies.
Oh, no lies. But back to the scoundrel teller. He is a vagrant of deceit, adept in the art of bamboozling, feels no more obligation to right the wrong or even care about being right at all.
Oh, no. He simply sees that his antics could be both entertaining and challenging. Oh, he prides himself in being able to pull the wool over the eyes of the beholders, while all the while becoming rich.
Soon this master swindler of a tailor was invited to the palace. He carefully devised a scheme.
Once his scheme was in place, he arrived at the palace, ready to offer to make the most elegant of imperial outfits befitting of an emperor.
One which would provide the emperor with what he lives for, pure and complete adoration.
The grand parade is coming up. Are you prepared for the task, tailor? Or shall I behead you now?
Oh, Your Excellency, I have quite prepared to custom design the most unique of costumes, such as the likes that no one has ever seen. In fact, the fabric I will use is so refined, so delicate, so exquisite, that somehow only the intelligent, the wise, and the honest will be dazzled by its splendor when they set their eyes upon it. On the other hand, those who are ignorant, foolish, and essentially stupid will not see your elegant ensemble of dress at all. In fact, Your Highness, they will see nothing. Oh, the beauty and elegance of this garb will escape their dawdling and inferior minds, appearing to these fools as invisible.
Invisible? Oh, impossible. What manner of exotic fabric is this? Huh. Can it truly be made into such a garment as befits an emperor?
Indeed, Your Highness, knowing that even you might doubt the possibility of such a rare cloth, I've brought a sample to prove its almost magical quality. Behold.
The tailor reached into his sack and pulled his hands out as if holding the cloth. He then waved it about, holding his open and empty hands before the emperor.
You see, Your Highness, isn't it absolutely beautiful? Like no other fabric you've ever seen. Well, what do you think of it? Surely one as wise and intelligent as you can see this fabric. Yes, Your Highness?
Well-
Surely you are not stupid and unable to see it.
I see.
Oh, the tailor did not let out, pushing further and further into his swindling scheme. He pointed out each thread so fine, the weave so tight, and even guided the emperor's hand over the imaginary cloth. It's practically lighter than air. Isn't that superb?
Yes. I feel how amazing this is.
As the tailor continued his vision for the emperor, all the ministers crowded around the display of imaginary fabric.
They nodded in amazement, though secretly wondered if their eyes were playing tricks on them.
In truth, none of them were brave enough to reveal any sign of disbelief or display of doubt, for this would be an admission of their stupidity, a public declaration of their foolishness.
And so Together they conferred.
Amazing.
Superb. A fantastic cloth for an emperor. Well, good then. Then it's settled. Set about making my clothes immediately, tailor.
The tailor promised the finest of designs and was whisked away with urgency to the imperial sewing chambers.
Day after day, night after night, the anxious emperor occasionally peeked through the keyhole to spy on the tailor.
He saw the tailor with the precision of a mime artist, gesturing the use of scissors, a measuring tape, inserting pins, and threading needles.
He watched the tailor making the moves of a master, making a costume pulled out of thin air. And in truth, unbeknownst to the spying emperor,
it was thin air.
Finally, the morning of the imperial parade had arrived. Already the throngs of early bird onlookers were packing both sides of the streets of the parade route.
The crowds were already abuzz with the rumors.
The emperor has new clothes.
Oh, made of magical fabric.
Only the wise can see it. Only those who have a smart brain can see it.
They say it will appear invisible to the foolish and stupid. Not us.
Well, tailor, the day has arrived. You better have made something exceptional. What do you have for me?
Oh, yes, Your Highness. The moment we've all been waiting for. But first, I request that we first clear the imperial court. Everyone, go. Out, now, out. Let's give His Highness a moment of privacy. Soon enough, he will present himself.
Once alone, the exuberant emperor disrobed all his former garb as the tailor, piece by piece, imaginary garment by garment, slipped then over the emperor's naked body.
Now the emperor gestures at his stroking the most beautiful fabric his mind could possibly imagine.
Soon the doors would be open for the emperor to display himself in his finest. The tailor quickly turned to his client and spoke.
You are ready. Your Highness, you look magnificent. It follows the contours of your physique perfectly, and it has made you look your most royal. Even adding height to your stature, adding finesse to your every move. After the sack of gold from Your Highness, I'm going to slip out the back here and roam behind the audience. I want to experience the reaction amongst the crowds. You know, hear their sighs and whispers of adoration for the full effect of my genius and your best and finest quality.
Certainly. I can't wait to hear the reaction. Oh, Taylor, I can't thank you enough for what you've done for me here. Now, your sack of gold.
The tailor squeezed that sack to his chest, smiled, gave a bow, and then quickly retreated out the hidden door with not so much as a glance back.
The emperor smiled with satisfaction, admiring himself in the mirror, and too infatuated with his new look to realize the tailor's rapid escape.
Soon the drums rolled.
The trumpets blared, and the doors swung open as the emperor, with a crown on his head and his fancy boot on his feet, stepped out to receive the multitude of citizens.
In a flash, jaws dropped.
Ladies gasped.
The eyes of ministers,
imperial guards,
and servants popped wide open.
Boing! For there before them was their naked emperor, stroking his arms and adjusting where a collar would have been, smoothing out the draping of a cape where it would have been, all the gestures of the most elegant of garments that were simply not there. Yet, with a sigh of ecstasy, the completely naked man launched his first steps into the noble parade. Of course, no citizen wanted to appear stupid, and though they'd all taken an honest look at the bare-bottom emperor.
The emperor's new clothes.
Certainly stunning.
They're, yes, magnificent.
Exquisite.
Absolutely out of the world.
Oh, far surpassing anything he's ever worn before.
Beyond imagination.
Oh.
The emperor has new clothes.
The emperor has new
clothes. Yes, the emperor has new clothes.
Oh, relishing these accolades, the emperor's bare-chested chest swelled above his very bare-rounded belly.
And with each new comment, his pride shone bigger, and his stature grew taller.
And with every new comment, of course, the crowd began to believe that they actually saw the emperor's new clothes.
As they watched with fascination and duplicity, their voices grew into volleys of cheers and rounds of thunderous applause. New clothes! The emperor has new clothes! The emperor shifted his head to the left and nodded, to the right and nodded.
He angled his body slightly to the left and then slightly to the right.
Then turned in a full circle, giving his subjects the full effect of his presentation.
And in this way, he thought himself quite generous, acknowledging the intelligence of his crowd.
He strutted about, as his adoring fans could see. He even added a skip and a hop.
When suddenly, the voice of a small child rang out as clear as a bell. As she watched the emperor passing by in full view, she innocently turned to her father and asked,
"Why is the emperor naked?"
Naked?
Yes. Why does the emperor have no clothes on?
No clothes?
Yes, Papa. He's wearing nothing at all except a crown on his head and his boots.
Nonsense. Why would the emperor wear no clothes?
Wait, did someone say no clothes?
The emperor? No clothes?
Soon nearby children began to giggle and point.
The sweet voices, they chimed in. The emperor has no clothes. The emperor has no clothes. Shh, stop it. Hush. How ridiculous.
Well, why, children? Would the emperor walk around with no clothes?
Did you say he was without any...
Oh, my.
Oh.
The children are absolutely right.
Oh, now I see it. Oh, rather, I don't want to see. Oh,
this rush of truth swept over the entire population.
Unbelievable.
Remarkable.
Stunning. Shocking.
Ladies blushed. Grown men snickered.
And a sea of heads dared to peek around, other heads bobbing up and down to take a look at the emperor's new look.
And all at once, the trumpets sagged a limp squeak.
Ah! Cried the emperor. I'm naked! Oh, the emperor has no clothes!
And from behind the crowd came the voice of the tailor. You have been trumped.
Oh, the musicians and the drummers, they turned around to witness the emperor's bouncing nude behind, scampering back to the palace.
Indeed, all the bare facts laid before them.
The spell had been broken, and the naked truth was there before them, blowing through the kingdom like a refreshing breeze.
The emperor hid behind closed doors in both fury and embarrassment, quickly grabbing a lacy tablecloth to wrap around his nudity.
Oh, the township, not sure whether it was safe to laugh out loud. They quickly retreated, and once behind closed doors, they filled their homes with laughter at the emperor's new clothes.
And as for the ministers, all their pretending for empty approval.
And as for the emperor, vain and self-adoring.
And as for the swindling tailor and clever rascals like him.
Be alert.
Be aware.
They are all out there.
They are ready and waiting for the gullible,
for the vain,
for the self-serving,
ready to weave,
spin,
and stitch together a perfect illusion just for you.
All without a thread
of
evidence. Stitch in time saves 9. All right, we will now do a second story for you. Again, about the tyranny of leadership.
Yes.
And it is a story from Tibet.
Let me get this up a little bit more so you can see the full effect of our presentation.
Robert, you're still way too tall. All right. This is a story from Tibet, and we call it
Monkey Moon. Ngamo, ngamo. Ngamo, ngamo. Once upon a time in the land of Tibet, one night, a golden full moon shone upon a beautiful forest with a beautiful pond.
Oh, the pond was so smooth, so crystal clear, that the water's surface was like a big bright mirror.
Now beside the shining pool stood a towering tree, and that was the home of a band of chit-chat-chitty, ooh, ooh, chit-chat-chitty, chit-chee.
From high in the tree
Monkeys.
to the pond below, the monkeys looked and saw something aglow.
Look down there, a golden moon.
I want it.
I want it.
The monkeys croon.
The moon, they screeched with glee.
When suddenly a voice said,
That's not for you. It's meant for me.
Who? It was their chief, their almighty king, who ruled over these monkeys and everything.
That golden moon is mine alone, and I command this from the monkey throne. I want it now, not later, not soon. Go get it now. Go fetch that moon.
So the monkeys lined up in numerical fashion. They saluted their chief with patriotic passion.
We'll fetch the moon for you, dear chief. If that's what you want, we'll be your thieves. So one at a time, down a long thin branch, each single monkey took a chance.
Each monkey stretched to fetch that disc, but each monkey failed, though each monkey put its own life at risk.
For the tree was too tall and the pond far below. An impossible task for any monkey, you know. But the king was angry. He jumped up and railed. That's not how you do it. Grab hand to tail.
Oh, hand to tail, chee-chee-chee-chee. They saluted their chief again. Ooh, hand to tail it shall be.
So the first one climbed out on the limb. Second one followed after him. Third and the fourth were right behind. So on and so forth down the line.
Hand to tail, chee-chee-chee-chee. Hand to tail shall be. And when not a single monkey remained, the monkeys exclaimed, Look, we've made a monkey chain.
Now the monkey at the bottom of the monkey chain, with all her might, she stretched and strained, reaching for the moon in the shining pool. Of course, she couldn't get it. The king cried, You fool! All of you are fools. You have failed all night. I guess I have to do it myself to get it done right.
So down the chain he climbed as each monkey chattered and chimed. Hand to tail, chee-chee-chee-chee. The chief is coming.
Hand to tail it shall be. Oh, the moon in the pond was so golden bright. The king's eyes glowed with greedy delight. With the moon in my hands, I'll be the emperor of the night.
And so that big chief of a chap did reach. He stretched and strained the magnificent feat. All the monkeys cheered their big chief on as he bobbed up and down towards that moon in the pond.
When from the top of the tree they heard the tiniest of sounds. Snap! The monkey looked up. Oak! The branch went crack.
Down, monkeys tumbling into the pool. These more loyal little monkeys and their majesty, the fool.
Splash went the king and his world chain of command as 1,000 little boots rippled through their dripping hands.
Now the chief uttered not a sound as his loyal monkeys howled, and a mocking golden moon slipped behind a silver cloud.
Now it's more than all right to reach for the moon or to climb out on a limb.
But to follow a foolish leader is to follow to a foolish end.
Chee-chee-chee, chee-chee, the end.
Ooh.
Thank you. How fantastic. I don't know if people understand that Nancy and Robert put together the Emperor's New Clothes just for today.
Indeed. Our first non-Asian story.
Although, with a little research, I discovered that in the 10th century, there were versions similar to this coming from India. And another version, I think, out of Spain. Or if you look at the research, this theme of bearing one's falsehood is commonly found in many places, many cultures.
And since you use emperor, which is, maybe France had an emperor.
Yeah, but in either case, all of those despots were all trumped up, as we say.
And also the Tibetan story. And actually side by side with Joseph's story. Let's bring Joseph back on. And actually, my wonderful co-host Simon Brooks is here today. But Simon is actually in a hotel, not at home. So he's been very careful not to unbalance the internet in the hotel. But so wonderful. I think it's really interesting. Joseph, I loved your story, and suddenly I can see the difference between a true leader and these two zany leaders. What did you think? Let's have a little conversation here.
Can you make it bigger?
Actually, the Emperor's Clothing is not just Hans Christian Andersen's story. Like a lot of things that Andersen did, he drew from many different cultures and recreated his own versions. So it is, in fact, from everything I've discovered, a story that has its roots in Asia.
Yay, we can tell it again.
Absolutely.
The naked truth comes out.
So we're getting some wonderful, wonderful comments of all delightful stories today, wonderful humor. Thank you for this program. Marvelous, naked truth, bare facts, love your telling. A beautiful story. Joseph, thank you for your wisdom. So wonderful. And Simon, how was this for you in the middle of a wedding and all that you're doing to hear these great stories?
Wow, the bits that I heard when the internet was actually working were wonderful. But I missed probably 50% of the last story, sadly, because the internet was just dropping and coming back, dropping and coming back. So I'm glad that we were able to actually put the show out without interruptions for our viewers, which is, right. I hope, what happens. So yeah.
Well, the Monkey Moon is on YouTube. So if you want to see the whole thing.
I will do that. I will do that.
Yeah. So we also have our YouTube, which will also have it. These are just remarkable to listen to stories back to back like this, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is. And this is part of what the pleasure of conjuring up a program like this online has been. Not only that these extraordinary storytellers actually, they are extraordinary storytellers, but people who are willing to take on the task of telling stories with another storyteller that have meaning for all of us. So you can tune in and listen to these stories over and over again on YouTube. Please do.
Yes.
And Joseph, what do you work? Oh.
I was going to say, the way we came together with a non-political theme, no relationship to the modern world. No.
None at all.
None at all. But what I was actually saying, joking aside, is the power of story is timeless. And those lessons continue on from generation to generation. No matter what we've gone through recently, those stories are there for us for the future. And they have that connection in so many different ways. And it's such an honor to tell with you too. I've always loved your work. It's great for us to be sharing a platform together this way.
Yes, we
thank
were
you.
very excited to know we were going to be with
Yes.
Joseph.
And as you were telling your story too, and I'm thinking of the four proponents in the story, it started to remind me of some of the Asian stories too. A lot of times there's four characters, each of them having a different talent. In some versions, it's the combined talent that create the success of the story. But as it led up to the idea of them blowing it, it reminded me of like Urashima Taro, a Japanese folktale of the turtle boy who goes under the ocean and is given a fantastic experience. But the princess of the underworld gives him a box and says, "Don't open it." And of course, what does he do? Poof! Yep, and it's his demise. Curiosity kills the cat.
Yeah. And there's
Yes.
also the Japanese story of Maliang, or Chinese story of Maliang, who can paint and they come alive.
Yeah, so in a carver, I just love seeing when you told that story, I was thinking of a carver going, boom, there's a whale. I love that.
I wish we could all do that.
Yeah. Maybe that's exactly what you do when you tell stories.
Carving. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
there
like
are
that.
metaphors implicit in what we do. And in the stories
Yeah.
themselves, the metaphoric depth is such that I think people sometimes forget how many levels a story can work and how the story keeps going on, as I implied, after it's told. The story continues traveling without us, and we've been free in the world for a while.
Yeah, the
Yes.
stories travel. In fact, I've always wanted to ask you, Joseph, among the Abenaki peoples, do you have a story of a talkative turtle who bites onto a stick and two cranes or birds take him up high to find a new pond? Is there something in that motif among the Abenaki?
Well, my friend Dovey Thomason tells us the Lakota story. I've heard it as a Menominee story, and I actually think that it's one of those stories that is found in many different places. We don't have an exact Abenaki or Abenaki story like that, but it's a very familiar motif and one that I think,
In fact, it's so ancient. We
It's
believe
Vietnamese.
we've heard it in Vietnam. We've heard it in India. We're among the Irola people sitting under a banyan tree, and they started launching this story about that turtle biting a stick and we're going, oh my God, it must be a very ancient story. For as humans started to spread around the planet, they brought with them a story like that.
No, I found so many.
I heard that story in a tent in Haiti.
Yeah.
Wow.
Where again?
Haiti.
In
Oh,
Haiti.
Haiti.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a Haitian story like that. And I was actually on a bus once at the African Literature Conference in Florida. And they asked me, some of my friends from Africa, if I had a story to share with them. I told a different story, the story about the talking skull. And at that point, everyone in the bus had their own version of that story.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's
That's great.
as we pulled into the parking lot, the driver, who was a local African American, turned around and said, "This sounds like that old graveyard squirrel to me."
Yeah.
It's magical, isn't it?
Yeah.
Stories beget stories for sure. Yeah.
But I just want to reiterate how wonderful it is, how meaningful it is that on this day before Independence Day on July 4th, we are bringing together wonderful Native American Abenaki storyteller Joseph Bruchac and an Asian theater story company that is actually, Joseph has also connection in his legacy to Eastern European and English and Native American, which has been the most meaningful in his life. And then what Nancy reminded us is that Robert is not only Philippine but Japanese, and Nancy's Chinese. So we're covering a lot of territory. And who knew? Who knows?
Yeah.
Whose ancestors walked across the Bering Strait, millions of years ago, and where these stories really began. So it's a wonderful way of celebrating diversity and attempting to overcome the sort of foolishness, utter unnecessary foolishness of bias.
Yeah, to break up our perceptions and our positions. In fact, when we, so often people say, "Oh, the Asian people walked across the Bering Strait to North America," and I think it was Dovey or Gail Ross that said, "Well, how do you know they didn't walk the other way?"
I was just about to, credit my Cro-Magnon ancestors for leaving North America 100,000 years ago. And suddenly appearing like it was all Neanderthal before, and suddenly the Cro-Magnon came from. Anyway,
these are really important conversations. I realized that when I said we're in an experiment of democracy, that actually this experiment was not created in the beginning of the United States, but was actually taken from the Six Nations. Unfortunately, there was one thing that our Constitution left out, which was the Council of Peace.
Yeah. There's with the Asian and the First Nations cooperation. With Nancy's story of the Chinese that came on a ship or shipwrecked off the coast of Monterey. It was
1850.
It was the Rumps Esalen peoples that helped pull them out of the waters
after their crash.
Also,
got
them established,
and also brought them back to health because they got very sick.
Yeah, and my ancestors, my father's generation, Nisei Japanese Americans, when they were shipped off to the concentration camps in the deserts of Arizona, it was the Gila River native peoples that they were hired as the guards, and they would actually turn their heads so that the young men could go out and raid the lumberyard to create furniture in the concentration camps.
Yep.
So there's all these really cool partnerships that are going on, across the color line.
But didn't you say something about there's the Japanese on one side of the fence and the natives, and they're looking at each other and going
through barbed wire, thinking, wow, reservations on one side, concentration camps on the other, a shared experience.
Very true.
Yeah.
Well, I really want to thank you all, and thank you, Joseph Bruchac. Thank you, Robert and Nancy. I hope that our listeners and those who are coming in the weeks and weeks to follow look you up online to see all the wonderful books, all the wonderful stories that are possible. Simon for making this unbelievable effort to be here today and make this happen. Thank you.
And Laura, thank you.
Well,
yes, very much so.
I always think, who could have a better job? Then to you, storytellers, is such immense treasure, and bring you together so that people can really be uplifted in these times.
Yeah.
Remember what really counts and how connected we all are. So thank you to the Hans Christian Andersen Storytelling Center. And we do have somebody here from Odense, which is celebrating the opening of an amazing project of the Hans Christian Andersen Storytelling Museum with a theater and playrooms for children and library and research, and amazing in Odense, Denmark, where Andersen was born. So if you like this today, if you can afford it, we're trying to raise funds for two things. One, because the Parks Department has lost so much of its funding during COVID, a festival that we were going to have the last day of September, which we traditionally have for the Duckling's birthday party, has to go back online because they don't have the sound system, the chairs, etc., to accommodate it. So we want to be able to pay storytellers and to really have a great celebration and make those stories available in schools when children who are going back to school, we hope, after this year of not being able to be together with their friends and play together and learn together, can listen to stories which really heal and nourish the capacity to learn and to feel empathy and be together. So if you would like to make a donation, Simon's going to put up that connection. Oh, he has already, of course. And I wonder, Joe, if you would like to drum us out.
Yes, actually,
Yes, please.
in our tradition, we don't say goodbye. We say have a good journey. Ulipangkani. And so this is a traveling song, a song for good travels, and also uligawi, uligwasi, dream well and sleep well. Uligawi, sleep well and dream well. Higo, higo ne, queo he, queo he, guano dio, guano de, guano dio, guano de, guano dio, guano don, hey, hey, go.
By nature chose 5. 5.